My name is Zada Henley Sanders. My dad, I was told, was reading a novel before I was born, and it was back in the time when you didn't know boy or girl. Not that it would have made a lot of difference. I could have been named Zada, I guess, for a lot of reasons. But he was reading a novel with the heroine being Zada. And he had never heard of that name, and he wanted a name that was different, and asked Mother, said, if it's a little girl, can we name her Zada? And Mother said yes. And he didn't give any of us middle names because he said girls, when they grow up, don't need middle names. They can keep their maiden name. So there's Zada Henley Sanders, Becky Henley Brown, Grace Henley Johnson, Maxine Henley Sweet, and now, of course, we have another Henley, but we'll talk about her later. Oh, mercy. Zader, Pater, Zipper, just whatever the kids' name could, at school could think of. My dad worked at Macmillan Oil-Free Refinery. I have a piggy bank that a cousin of us gave us. That is one of the remembrances that we have, because it was a refinery and they canned motor oil, and it was Macmillan ring-free motor oil, and it's a piggy bank. And of course, he worked there from the time he was in high school until he passed away. And when I see it, it's just one of the remembrances I have of him. My mother came over and was working at a dry goods store in Smackover with her aunt. And that's where my dad met her, and they married, and was married for, I guess, 40-something years before my dad passed away. And after they were married, of course, her total job was working, raising 5 children, taking care of a grandfather and a grandmother we had, and another boy that we loved very much, Glaston Henley. Oh, we thought she was beautiful, and she was, but she was so sweet, caring, worked hard, just took care of us kids better than you'd ever imagine. We wanted to go out and make a snowman, and it was snowing, and she didn't want us sick. So she went outside the window and built a snowman, and she got sick and had flu, really, really sick, but none of us got sick. She was that type person. That he was hardworking. He always loved his animals. He had a lot of gardening, and had, like I say, cows and pigs and goats, and he was just a hardworking man. That lots of kids and lots of family, and we had lots of company with cousins that came, and Sunday afternoons and playing games, and I was just real crazy about my siblings, and of course Maxine was my baby. Well, we were in a neighborhood. I grew up in I don't think I ever grew up, but I grew up in Norfolk, and it's the only place I'd ever lived. And from one side of the hill to the top of the hill, which they called Henley Hill, was my entire world. I had never lived anywhere else. My wedding veil, and it was spread out on the table, and they were helping me make rice bags, and Maxine let the scissors be on the wrong netting and cut my veil, which made it a lot shorter than it would have been otherwise. And with Maxine, she slept with me, and she had leg cramps, and I would rub her legs during the night, or I'd let her sleep with her legs across me because they hurt. And the only thing she said of the day was I never made her feel bad, no matter what she did. And, I just loved them all. Not near enough. If I had it to do over with, I'd help my mother more with washing the dishes after she had cooked and piled them up, Basketball, the love of all of our lives. I don't know if you can say that was the love of Maxine's life, because she'd really rather sit in the stands and read a book. But I loved it, Becky loved it, Grace loved it, Grace was, you know, outstanding. FTA, future teacher, because I wanted to be a teacher. Got to be a cheerleader the year, and we wore long skirts because we didn't show our legs and our undergarments. And if you spun around, you put your hands down so your long gored skirt didn't show. Times have changed. I was 19 and he was born after I was 20. His birthday will be February the 6th and he'll be 60. So I was 20 years old when he was born. I have 3. I've got Andy, Susie, and John, and yes, they were born in 60, 61, and 62. They were all born when we lived in Norfolk, and they were born, 2, I say that, were born in El Dorado, the hospital there, and John was born in Smackover at a clinic, and Dr. Turnbow delivered them, and he went to Smackover. Watching them grow up and have grandkids because, you know, I thought they were really special, and then you come along and then you've got great-grands that are more special than the grandkids. So, well, Maxine and I discussed the other day, he was in his 50s and we didn't know if it was 54, 56, 52. I don't keep up with dates. I can tell you birthdays. His birthday was March 13th, and he would be 78 next month. He was born on Friday the 13th, and my mother said, don't ever say that Friday the 13th was unlucky, because that's when Butch was born. She worshiped him as she did the rest of us, but he was a good son. Oh, Butch, you would have enjoyed those grandkids. He got to see Austin. And I can still hear his voice when he called me on the telephone and said, Zada, I have a grandson, because it was supposed to have been Courtney, a girl, and when it was a boy, of course, he would have loved a girl too. But raising an only daughter, he was thrilled with that Austin. He would head to Fayetteville to see her. In fact, I have the picture of him holding Austin, and Grace just has fixed unconditional love room, and she wanted my picture of Butch holding Austin, and he did not get to meet Courtney, but he would be so pleased with his family. Mercy me, that was my Andrea, and that was Andy's granddaughter, and of course we didn't know, you know, girl or boy, and of course he wanted a boy, and he'd look at that window and I would look in that window and he'd just shake his head and he'd say, but that hair. She had the most gorgeous red hair, looked like her head was on fire. And I wanted to see her every day. I would want to see her. And that didn't happen, but I wanted to see her every day. Oh, Lordy. And then the next one was Brian, and that was Susie's first one. And before he was born, didn't know what he was going to be, went and got his nursery supplies, and it was gingerbread people, and there was the mobile, and there was the rug, which I have, and I hate to say that it's 34 years old, but after he came October the 2nd, it was close to Christmas, and he had a little brown velvet outfit that had a gingerbread man on it. And of course I could see him anytime I wanted to, hold him, love on him, anytime I wanted to. And he was my little gingerbread boy. And I will cry when I talk about it, because it has become an obsession that every time I saw a gingerbread item, I had a gingerbread boy, and of course I had the gingerbread girl, because I'd buy a girl and a boy, and I'd write Andrea on the girl, and I'd write Brian on the boy. And if I would see a gingerbread item, I'd say, oh, that's my gingerbread kid, sweet enough to eat. And so through the years with my connection with Brian, I have literally, I want to say, thousands and thousands and thousands of gingerbread items, all because of one little old boy born 34 years ago. And his brother Blake said, Mimi, I may not have been your first gingerbread boy, but I'm your sweetest. And I said, absolutely. But, you know, every time I see one, it represents my grandchildren, sweet enough to eat. I've got Andrea, and then Brian, and then Joshua, that I just got to go to South Louisiana and see his little girl that's a year old, that's just precious, looks like him. Then Amber, that I happened to get to have lived with me for quite a while, that's going to have a baby, and another great-grandchild. And then Blake, that came at Christmas, but is in Australia and wouldn't get to be here. And I do wish my house were clean so that we could take a video through it of the literal thousands, from my dishes to 50 salt and pepper shakers and anything different that's a gingerbread man. And most of the things that's in this house has a gingerbread man on it, or I don't want it in the house. Thanks to that Brian Bridges. Oh, mercy. The first one I had is Zoe, and I think she's 9. It's hard for me to keep up with all the ages, and she lives in Mississippi, so I've been to every one of her birthdays except her first one, because I was out of town on a trip with my sisters that was already planned. And then I had Lorgan, which, sorry about this, I could, you know, he's my sugar baby. That's what I've called him. You know, he's just the sweetest little boy I've ever seen. He's just 10 to 1 sweeter than Brian. But anyway, I have my Lorgan, and then I have Henley, that's named the most honored thing that's happened to our family, named after the Henley sisters, we call it, or the Henley family. And she's got that red hair and a mess. I call her my baby doll because that's what she reminds me of. And I also call her Miss CEO because she can order me around of where to sit. Of course, where I sit on the floor after I'm ordered to do so, Brian has to help me up. But I also sometimes call her Raccoon because she can go through my purse and find more things that I didn't even know I had. And then I have the little 1-year-old Georgia Paige that just turned 1, and they had wanted a baby and tried. So I have 4 great-grandchildren that make all the others pale in comparison. And I'm blessed enough to see Lorgan and Henley. And when times get better, we come over, or I try to go have something for them to eat so I can see them once a week and they can play. And it makes you change a little dining area to a playroom so they can have things they look forward to, or I hope they do. But that's my 4 great-grandchildren. Got 1 on the way, and gonna be another little girl, so Lorgan will still be my only sugar baby. And as of now, they're going to name her Finn, F-I-N-N, which I've not heard of the name, but I like different names and short names, but Finn Elizabeth, due in May. This is almost a joke. I tease about making hard choices, and at the time in the 3rd grade when we had to write a paper about your favorite fruit, and I just struggled over whether I was going to write it about peaches or strawberries. And it wouldn't have made any difference if I'd have written a paper about figs that I didn't like or pears I didn't like. But I wanted it to be true of whether it was peaches or strawberries that was my favorite fruit. And to this day, I don't know what I wrote about or which is my favorite. So, but you know, there's things I think about when I was grocery shopping with my mother. And she had just so much money. And we were in Smackover, the little grocery store, and I wanted these strawberries. And nowadays, you can get strawberries year-round. But back then, it was only in season that you could get them. and I wanted some of those strawberries so badly, and Mother says, I don't have enough money to buy the strawberries. And we put them in the buggy, and when she checked out, there was more groceries than what we had money for. And I said, put the strawberries back. But she would have bought them for me if she had had the money, because I liked them. Oh, that I loved them, and when I died, they threw away a lot of my things that I wouldn't throw away. I've got silver bracelets, and I've got gold bracelets and diamond bracelets. But then this was made a couple of years ago, and they picked out the colors. There were 5 purples and a yellow and 2 pinks and a green and a peach and a blue and a yellow and a rose, and it says Mimi. And every time I see it, I think of them. And I'm sure they'll put it in the bonfire, because that's a statement that's made quite often with all of my stuff. I just found this thing that I'm going to put in the bonfire, and it's the map quest of how to get to my sister's house, and it was made in 2002. And I think they've even changed the way you get there now, but I never throw anything away. And there's pictures I've been getting rid of. And this was when I put pink in my hair and went with Brian Steed to see Pink in Dallas. And Maxine and Dan had been on a trip and went with us, and they made a picture of me with my pink hair. And this was a picture when we were at Maxine's of me, and we lined up. Every time they'd say, let's make a picture, we'd say Zada, and of course Judy would be Butch. Zada, Judy, Becky, Grace, and Maxine, and you just didn't line up any other way. That's just the way it was. And this, Susie's got tickled. I pull out so many things, and it's a card, and it's got I with a heart, love you, God is love, love, a heart, I love Jesus. And you see, you think that was torn, but when you open it, it makes a heart. And it says, Mimi, I love you so, so much. And it's got pictures of little boys, 5 little boys, and he drew an I and a heart, love you, by Blake. You are loved. And on the back, he put Hallmark. Faded, old, and special. And when I see things like this, I just keep junking up my place, because I don't want to get rid of anything. But I'm going to give it to Susie for a scrapbook for Blake. Oh, and this, either they take it back or it goes in the bonfire. But when I got Christmas cards, this one was in 2016, back when they had Roxy. But these were the Schustermans, and I know Tammy's coming. I'm not sure if any of the girls are coming. But when they'd send me Christmas cards, I loved them, and I'd look at them for a long, long time. But I'm going to give it back to her. I still have the invitation to Will's puppy party. I wish I had dated it, but he was very, very young, and he's through college and performing on Broadway, on a tour now with Mean Girls. And then the things that have dates on them, I've got the Christmas card from Billy, Tony, Jenna, Will, and their 2 dogs, Casper and Rocky. And she's now married and got a child. And then the way siblings do, or Grace fixed it for me, we love you, Aunt Zada. And it's pictures of her 2 grandsons, and they are through with school. Garrett is in college, and Grant is through with college. And I don't know the year, but that's how old they are. And of course, this one was 2005. Merry Christmas and holiday blessings from the Branners. And I just want everyone to know how much I've enjoyed. Oh, my favorite thing, worn out. But this was the rug that came with the nursery for Brian. And I still have his mobiles in the kitchen. And I have this rug that I keep beside the bed. And know that I blame him for all of this obsessive gingerbread loving for everybody. Can't blame it on one person, but I do. That I use, a word that I use all the time, or just my favorite word, gingerbread. Least favorite word, no. Getting to see my kids, not seeing my kids, hearing them knock on the door and grinning, crying, screeching and crying. You loved your family and you hated to leave them, but the time is here, and no one wants to live and not enjoy them or know that you're, I want my time on earth to be spent loving my kids, loving my family. That's it. I have no goals or expectations other than that. That's it. When I died and anybody came to the funeral, the service, they had to take away a gingerbread something. Of course, I've got thousands in there. Not thousands in there. I've got many in there. I've got them all over the house. I have gingerbread dishes. I don't have enough people to come to my memorial to take just one. They'd have to take a sack full. In fact, I think that's what Jamie says, take one, they're gonna have to take a sack full of gingerbread things. But every time people that know me see a gingerbread man, they say they think of me. So that's good to be thought of more than other things you might say. I got a new necklace this Christmas, and I don't wear it every day, but I've got a jewelry armoire that I put all the gingerbread stuff in it. So Henley and Lorgan gave me one with two little gingerbread people on it, and when I wear it, I think of them. And then Susie gave me one that got a bite out of it, and she's given me lots of gingerbread jewelry, and so it just grows and grows and grows. So I can't live real long, or I certainly won't have a place to put everything.